We light this chalice to remind ourselves to treat all people kindly because they are all our siblings, to take good care of the earth because it is our home, to live life full of goodness and love because that is how we will all become the best people we can be. May the light we now kindle inspire us to use our powers to heal and not to harm, to help and not to hinder, to bless and not to curse, to serve you, Spirit of freedom.
We circle round for freedom. We circle round for peace. Thank you to the River Road Choir, and welcome back to the sanctuary, to the choir. Let us have another. Good morning, River Road, and welcome. We welcome all of you here in the sanctuary, and we welcome all of you joining us through our live stream. My name is Kirsten Lodel, and I am honored to be serving as your intern minister this year. When we selected that opening hymn to honor this month's theme of widening the circle, we could never have imagined how poignant and piercing it would be. For we now really do today, this Sunday, come together to circle round for freedom and to circle round for peace as we process and reel from and respond to the Russian invasion of Ukraine. We are reminded in these moments that the vision of the beloved community is indeed a global vision. It is a vision in which all people can share responsibly and peacefully in the bounty of this earth. We are reminded of our interconnectedness and our interdependence as a global community. And this means that what we do right here at River Road to strengthen and nourish our own root systems is a contribution to the global work of peace, justice, and to the pursuit of beloved community. The concept of nourishing our roots as a community will be the focus of today's service as we kick off our annual Stewardship campaign. This is the time of year when we ask every member of this congregation to commit as they are able to donate the resources necessary to support and sustain all that we do here at River Road and all that we endeavor to be in the world. This morning, we are once again elated to have our RE children back in the building and gathered with us here in the sanctuary. Yes. Including our fabulous chalice lighter, Leandro, thank you. And before they head to their classes, we would like to begin our worship all together by reflecting on the prophetic wisdom of root systems within communities, and in fact, on our own root system right here at River Road, thinking about our own founding story. I'd like to invite up our religious education and family ministry leaders, Beth Irakura and Laura Piervincenzi, to lead us in today's prophetic voices. Come, let us worship.
Good morning. I'm Laura Piervincenzi, your family ministry coordinator, and today's service is all about strengthening and nourishing roots. And as I was thinking about that, I was thinking about our congregation and how it came to be. And lucky for me, Beth Irakura, our Director of Religious Education, spent the last week putting together a bunch of facts and photos about our beginning that she's going to share with us now. So, Beth, how did it all begin?
Well, first of all, I'd really like to thank member Joan Zenzen, who did a tremendous amount of work on the history of this congregation, and I used her work extensively for finding out all the wonderful things about this congregation. It all starts with a church in D.C., All Souls Church Unitarian. It got so big that people started founding other congregations in Montgomery County. Cedar Lane, that's in Bethesda, was one of the first congregations.
Okay, but we're River Road, not Cedar Lane.
True. Cedar Lane, specifically the religious education program, was overflowing. So the Unitarian Center of Bethesda Chevy Chase was started, and that later became River Road.
I think we have a slide. Okay, slide coming. Okay, well, why don't you tell us who's going to be in the slide when it appears?
When the slide appears, we'll see Muriel Davies. She was one of the first religious professionals that we ever hired here in 1959. She ran the religious education school and, from what I hear, a lot of other things too.
I recognize her name because each year we award the Muriel Davis Award for Excellence in Religious Education to honor her. Okay.
Coming back. We're going the
We're
wrong way.
going.
It'll work out.
Okay.
It's okay.
That's okay. All right, there we go.
There we go. There's Muriel.
There's Muriel, and who's the other man with her?
That is the first minister here at River Road, Reverend Robert Lewis. But he comes in later in the story.
Yeah, so I heard that we began at a local middle school.
Actually, the first worship service and RE classes were held at the Radnor School on October 4th, 1959. There was also singing. Pretty quickly, we were overflowing that space too, though. So we started looking for a minister and some land to build on.
So how did we get here in this space?
Well, the land we're on now was for sale. The story is that member Ed Bennett, who developed areas of Carderock, convinced the developer of this land at River and Whittier that it wouldn't work for houses. So hilly, all these things, it just wouldn't work. So he convinced the developers here, to sell it to us, and we bought it in 1960.
So there was a sign up at that time, there we go, and but it doesn't say church, and it says church, and it doesn't say Universalist.
You're right. In November of 1960, we voted on the name River Road Unitarian Church. It was a good name for a while. Calling it River Road helped people find the place, and calling it Unitarian Church was from our roots at All Souls Unitarian in DC and from Cedar Lane Unitarian Church. This was before the Unitarians and the Universalists joined together. Then in 2007, the congregation voted to change the name to River Road Unitarian Universalist Congregation to be more open and welcoming to people.
So how did the construction of the building go?
As you can imagine, everyone was so excited. As founding member Brad Patterson recalled at the groundbreaking ceremony, by holding hands where the walls would be, we symbolized that our church would be all of us together as a congregation. It is symbolic and beautiful also. I got this information from Joan's work. The church would be warm and inviting to symbolize Unitarian concern for people and openness to the world. The church would be creative and artistic, yet simple and honest, combining modern and traditional materials because Unitarians use their heritage creatively. To recognize the Unitarians' love of beauty in both nature and human works, the church would be beautiful and integrated with its surroundings. And finally, the church would provide a functional setting for many different activities because the church is not the end in itself.
What can you tell us about the bell tower, which I didn't even realize was a bell tower because there's no bell?
The bell-less bell tower, yes. I've heard the story, which may or may not be true, that the neighbors really didn't want the bell. Understandable. But Joan wrote that another conflict was whether to fund the construction of the bell tower. Some argued it was not necessary, but others pointed to the visual completion the tower gave to the building. It does look really good, doesn't it? And an anonymous gift made the bell-less bell tower possible.
Okay, so going back to that first slide, who is that gentleman?
In May 1961, the Reverend Robert Lewis was called as our very first minister. He had a background in social justice, which was really important to the new congregation, just as social justice is important to us today. Some of the many things he did, I missed something, I'm sorry, I'm going back. Some of the many things the congregation did were to help preserve a historically black neighborhood in Glen Echo, start a tutoring program called Operation Catch Up, and participating in the 1963 March on Washington, and approving a nonprofit, low-cost preschool in our very own building. In the new building, we were able to grow from our roots, have more space for our religious education program, more space to grow our social justice work, and of course, a beautiful space to come together and encourage one another.
Thanks, Beth. That's all the time we have now. We've got to get these kids to their classes.
All right, so high school will go through these doors to their room. Elementary school will go through the back doors and downstairs. Middle school will go through the back doors and upstairs. I hope you have a really great morning.
Wonderful, and it's just wonderful to have children back in the building. My first experience was last week, the first time in 23 months of actually having children in the building. So we are so grateful for the deep roots that our founders established to be in this spectacular place. And now we turn to our theme of today, which is all about giving, and giving as a spiritual practice. Giving is an expression of our deepest desires for the world. And giving is an expression of who we want to be in that world, individually and as a community. Today, we launch our annual Stewardship campaign, and what it means to be a steward is quite literally to take care of people, to take care of a place, and to make sure that the journey we are all on here together at River Road is looked after. And so as we kick things off today, we are thrilled to be joined by one of our lead stewards, Joe Salunas. And given the theme of this year's campaign, which is nourishing our roots, it is hard to imagine anyone who has done more to strengthen and nourish River Road's root systems in countless ways than Joe, including quite literally through the loving and conscientious cultivation of our beautiful grounds, all that we see here by that founding design through our sanctuary windows that Joe has helped to bring to true fruition. Joe, thank you for your leadership, now as lead steward, and for your willingness to share some reflections today. I am honored to cede the pulpit to you. Thank you, Joe.
Good morning. My roots with River Road go back 26 years to when Barbara and I walked into Reverend Bill Murray's office for marriage counseling. We raised our two boys, Andrew and Daniel, with the help of the River Road community. Both boys went through RE, did OWL, sang in the youth choir, were in the youth group, and went on service trips to El Salvador and West Virginia. My involvement with River Road started when I was teaching Daniel's first grade RE class. I still view those kids as kind of my kids. And you'll get that experience too if you ever teach RE. It's wonderful. I became involved with governance, serving on the board, L&N, and various task forces. Serving on the board was one of the most enriching experiences of both my professional and personal life. It's great. Currently, I sing in the choir and serve on the building and grounds committees. Now that I'm retired, I spend many mornings here pulling the roots of non-native invasive vines and nourishing the roots of the many wonderful native plants we have here on our site. One of my first memories of River Road was walking up the driveway on a sunny spring morning and seeing a beautiful stand of yellow native trout lilies growing along our driveway. And what impressed me was that someone took the effort to put a little label on the little patch where they were blooming to let us know what they were. For me, our grounds and our building are a place of refuge and wonder. At the start of the pandemic, I started a blog called Grounding. The objective was, even though we were not able to be here together, we could still stay connected to each other, our grounds, and it's been a great experience. The blog has allowed me to get to know every square foot of our grounds and to be able to share the wonders with the rest of the congregation. And working on the blog last year, I made a discovery that our land was previously owned by an individual who enslaved about a dozen people here. Our Land Acknowledgement Task Force is working to use this knowledge of our land's roots to build relationships with these communities that have been impacted by historic injustices. We pledged to River Road shortly after becoming members and have given continuously for over 25 years. We give with a sense of gratitude for all that River Road has done for our family and for the larger community. I'd like to thank everyone who has ever pledged to River Road and has allowed us to nourish our roots. Thank you.
When Giving is All We Have, a poem by Alberto Rios. One river gives its journey to the next. We give because someone gave to us. We give because nobody gave to us. We give because giving has changed us. We give because giving could have changed us. We have been better for it. We have been wounded by it. Giving has many faces. It is loud and it is quiet. It is big, though small, diamond in wood nails. The story is old, the plot worn, and the pages too, but we read this book of generosity anyway, over and over again, because giving is first and every time hand to hand. Mine to yours, yours to mine. You gave me blue, I gave you yellow. Together we are simple green. You gave me what you did not have, and I gave you what I had to give. Together we made something greater from the difference. In a moment, when Shuai's beautiful music plays again, and before we are blessed the second time in one day by this choir gathered here to sing live and in person before us and stretching out to you in your homes, we'll invite you to join in our all-in pledging process, a chance to engage, not now, but not later, but right now, in a generosity that is born only from community. We know you might have questions about what it means to give, to pledge, about what it means to give not till it hurts, but till it feels good, to extract all guilt and obligation from giving, and to do it as a part of a community that just might fill some space in your own heart. We want you to know that members of our Financial Stewardship Committee are available in person, in the lounge after the service, down in the plaza for our coffee hour, and in a dedicated breakout room in our Zoom chat after the service. You can also email stewardship@ruuc.org. These are not folks in for the hard sell. These are folks who themselves give their time to help make something powerful possible here. We've been listening and adapting as we've made our way through the early stages of this stewardship process. So thank you to everyone who has already come to leadership receptions and who, like my family, has already dug deep to give your gifts. Our request this year is that our longtime supporters renew your pledge to River Road, hopefully right now, today, using the cards that are on your seat. You can hit the big green button on the website. You can make your pledge today for the coming year with hopefully an increase of 5% if possible. If you have already done so, like me and my family, thank you. We also have a new pledge challenge kicking off this year to encourage first-time pledging. I cannot say this enough. Pledging here is not about giving till it hurts. It's about giving what feels good, and every amount matters. And what happens when we contribute to the new pledge challenge is that those new pledges at any amount, large to small, are elevated through the generosity of longtime donors. We hope to reach a total of $10,000 to match and inspire new pledges. And if you have never pledged before, or if pledging or giving is a stretch in these days, know it all matters, however much. I hope if you would contribute to that growing amount in our new pledge challenge, you might also contact the Stewardship Committee. And if you would like to help support your family or you personally as you make your own decisions, do let us know. We are here because we have the opportunity to become the best versions of ourselves. We give because giving has changed us. We give because giving could have changed us. What you did not have, and I gave you. What I had to give, together. We make something greater and something beautiful from the difference.
side by side. Draw the circle wide. Draw the circle wide, draw it wider still. Let this be our song. No one stands alone, standing side by side. Draw the circle wide. Draw the circle wide, draw it wider still. Let this be our song. No one stands alone, standing side by side. Draw the circle wide. Draw the circle wide. Draw the circle wide. Draw the circle wide. No one stands alone, we'll stand side by side. Draw the circle wide. Draw the circle wide, draw it wider still. Let this be our song. No one stands alone, standing side by side. Draw the circle wide. Draw the circle wide, draw it wider still. Let this be our song. No one stands alone, standing side by side. Draw the circle wide. Draw the circle wide, draw it wider still. Let this be our song. No one stands alone, standing side by side. Draw the circle wide. Draw the circle wide, draw it wider still. Let this be our song. No one stands alone, standing side by side. Draw the circle wide. Draw the circle wide.
Has it ever been more important for the circle of concern, the circle of what it is to be community in this place and globally? Has it ever been more important to draw that circle wide? I bring you a prayer from the Koromila contemplative Christian community in Ukraine, praying with sadness in the deep, deep honor of living their values. God who sees the weakness in acts of naked aggression. God who feels the fear in moments of acute hopelessness. Cure this warring madness and shield all who fall in harm's way. Leach the poison from the mind of the mighty that thinks strength is shown in bullying force. And may an equal strength and solidarity give resolve to those whose aim is to protect and to respect not just the ones we call our own, but all with whom we can share a better, more peaceful world. And may these gifts, which we have gathered to give, gifts of art, gifts of company, gifts of time and talent and treasure, lift us toward our greater vision, to be those who accompany, not just the ones right next to us in this room and through our screens, but all those called to build peace, to be brave, and to get real in the face of mighty powers. May these gifts change us so that we may change the world. Amen.
Stay
Strength itself is a worthy goal, I suppose. The ability to do more work at greater demand over longer periods of time. The capacity to exert one's power upon the environment in a way that moves big things around.
Strength is a worthy goal, I suppose, though boring, most often quite lonely, and exhausting in the end.
Resilience is much harder and more necessary. Resilience is the Herculean task these days demand.
And the thing about resilience, you see, the thing about resilience is that it's not about me, it's not about you, and it's not about our power to exert ourselves more and more over untold domains of time and effort.
The thing about resilience is that we cannot create it through all our separate striving and earnest grasping.
The reed in the wind, they say, will bend, curve to a point of resilience, not by strength of will, but by knowing and being known to the very wind that topples mighty trees.
The oak that stands alone may falter, fighting with hard-earned strength. But that reed, the wise ones contemplated in days long past, that scraggly thing tempest-tossed on the riverbank with no pretensions of might, no bark to protect itself, and no bluster whatsoever.
The reed will bend and reorient and bend again because it knows the wind knows it and its counterparts upon the storm-tossed shores.
The other reeds bend too, tossed by a force so much greater than any one of them alone. But still they rise because they are together with the wind and with each other.
Save your stories of brute strength for other days, or other people, or other moments when standing alone might still seem vaguely heroic.
Bring to these days your stories of resilience, never one in isolation, of what it is to bend because we are impacted by each other and by the world, and rise because we are never alone in the height of the terrible gale or at its ending.
Strength itself is a worthy goal, I suppose, but resilience is a celebration, a chance to thrive, a gift we can only give each other.
Let us rise, resilient and proud, scrabbly and courageous, tempest-tossed and together.
Let us grow and change, not because we are the strongest, but because we are and have always been each other's people.
Strength itself is a worthy goal, I suppose. But there are other goals, like resilience, like what it is to lead and be in community in these days. And you know, there is a way of leading that involves a great lot of declarative statements. Standing up and saying what is true and what is not true, and doing so with definitive resolve. There is a way of leading in this world that is dependent upon the big guy, who is only very occasionally not a guy, flexing literal and metaphorical muscle to declare what part of the past we will pay attention to, what this very moment in the present means, and who gets to be lifted up or broken down in the far-reaching days of the future. We live in a time when the big guy, around the world and close to home, is newly flexing. And sometimes we live in a world where the big guy is getting away with it, when leadership is increasingly understood to be a matter of how brazen a thing one can declare and actually back up without consequence, in this country and beyond, leadership and success have become matters of strength of will, and power is increasingly synonymous with the ability to hold it and centralize it, to concentrate it upon an ever-shrinking subset of the population. I mean, what can Amazon.com not do? Or China? Or Russia? This is a time when the mighty oaks pretend that they grew so strong all by themselves, while the root systems down below, the roots that connect all things and all beings and all people and all nations, the ones that are so inextricably interwoven that none can grow strong without the sustenance of others, the root systems below that connect us are ignored in our discourse in favor of a strength displayed by the mighty and few above ground. The great powers are consolidating. Only a few giant trees left standing in the forest, while all else in commerce, in geopolitics, in culture, all else fights to survive beneath them. We live in a time when once fractured empires are growing in new ways, even while other forms of organization seem to slip into an unsustainable oblivion. When voluntary associations just like this one are crumbling, and when real-life social networks, including your neighborhood bowling league Robert Putnam wrote about 20 years ago, have long gone under. A time when schools are splintering along manufactured political lines and fundamental social services are treated as if they're nothing more than crippling agencies of the government dole, and everyone is just plain too tired to come up with a whole new way of forming community when the old ways of connecting and making meaning and leading feel like they're falling apart in our very hands. Now, I know this is probably not the sermon you were expecting today on Stewardship Sunday. As we kick off our giving campaign and we celebrate your generosity, and believe me, this is not the sermon that I wanted to preach today. I didn't want to. I wanted to preach a happy one about how far we've come in this pandemic and how brave we've been, and how much we've adapted, and how truly, overwhelmingly, weepily happy I am to see so many of you brand new to this place and long-time participants in this community. How happy I am that we can finally draw our circle wide enough to welcome all the weary ones, including the ones who came here for the first time today, back home to a place that is safe enough to learn and grow together. That's the sermon I wanted to preach, and I wanted to tell you that your gifts, not some abstract benevolence born out of duty or obligation, but your gifts of time, of talent, and treasure make life-changing work possible in the world and in our hearts, because this place and places like it exist to change us, so that we can, in fact, change the world. But first, I need to say this. Do you know how brave it is and how difficult to lead in these days without making a great lot of declarative statements? To not stand up and declare the way that things should be, but instead bring the question forthrightly to colleagues and friends and partners who have shown up on whatever day it is we are given to grapple with those same questions to deny the cultural impulse to compete and flex and preen around the committee table and use every single Sunday morning we are given to give our very own progressive TED Talks about exactly what the future will look like in the hands of a powerful, wealthy, and unsacrificially woke few. What I'm saying is, what we're doing here together, what we're trying to do? To sustain and strengthen a truly collaborative, democratic community, it is an increasingly fragile, increasingly brave, and ever more important endeavor. What we are trying to do here, to be a community of people, composed by the people, designed for those people, for visionary ends we create for each other, it is not a given in this world. One thing that happens when the big guys declare what the future will be is that networks of connection and interrelated power below them, they tend to break apart. Just as real life social networks and community bonds are breaking right now around the world. Which means that what we're trying to do here is a boldly countercultural and ever more necessary thing. It is not a meek, comfortable, middle-class suburban thing to do to build a community. It is not a thing we do out of habit or responsibility or even tradition. It is a boldly countercultural thing to sustain a network of relationships where we choose to lead each other forward. Not because any one of us says so, or any fancy-pants ecclesiastical authority above us declared it, or any organizational system demands our fealty, but because we believe it is possible for human beings to organize themselves in ways that do not submit to hierarchies, nor allow the power-mongering and isolation of the world around us to sneak into our own hearts. A congregation, in some ways, is an old-fashioned thing, perhaps. Like this quilt hanging behind us, an old-fashioned thing, perhaps, which we recently rediscovered in a closet here at River Road, wrapped in archival paper, this gift to us decades ago from a founding member of this congregation, Florence Van Straten. She gifted it to us, knowing that the oldest of the fabrics in this quilt dates to 1806, and that in 1913, on her 13th birthday, our very first choir director got this quilt from her mother and her grandmother, and she passed it in turn on to us. It is the fragments of a family story. It is pieces of a culture. It is pieces of history and of time, and it has no better home than here, because Florence Van Straten, our founder, the people who first gathered to make music such as you heard today in this place, they knew that reaching on into the future, this would be a home for the gathered, disparate pieces of all our stories to come together. And so it hangs for us here today, a reminder of the beauty that is created, not just from the separate pieces of our stories, but from the generations that give from their hearts and souls and time to know that a network of committed people is still possible in this world. A congregation is an old-fashioned thing, perhaps, like a quilt. It is assembled. It grows from roots planted long ago. In our case, most of River Road's institutional roots, they were planted in mid-century post-war America, when parents and parents' parents came home from facing horrors unknown before their generation, yearning for a place to connect and to serve. A place to put their skills to use, their shoulder to the plow of good works, a place to educate their children, us, in the art of learning not what to think, but how to think. These roots, they go deep, not just in the institution that is this congregation, but in our hearts, to those ancestors who gave us the courage to think for ourselves, to create something new, to build lives that we can only live because of those who came before and told stories about connection and community and culture and, yes, democracy in this place and in all the places that created us. Our forebears did not declare what the future would be, coming out of chaos, of the world at war. Our forebears, both institutionally and individually, They got together. They held 10,000 community meetings. They sat around each other's dining room tables and created a future for us where our children also get to learn this way, not what to think, but how to think, where our Sunday mornings like theirs are filled with song, where this pulpit exists, not just for big guys to declare smart things out loud, but this pulpit exists to model what it is to be authentic in the face of a changing and unjust world. Even when all of us are stripped bare of our bluster and come before one another with only honesty and generosity to offer. And you know, I have worried in these last 2 years about what leadership in this eroding time of connection means. I have worried about all the ways in which I personally cannot stand in front of you and tell you what our future will be like. I have worried still that it denotes a lack of vision and strength in me. That somehow in this storm you all deserved a firmer hand and more directional instruction than I could provide temperamentally as a pastor and a person, that you deserved someone to stand up and tell you what it would look like when we came through this storm. And yet, I am many things, but I am not a big man. In these days, when I see yet again the destruction of the big man's declarations, when I see that the destruction that those declarations wreak upon us here at home and in this world, I wonder anew if there have to be other ways, not simply other ways to lead, but other ways to organize ourselves in community. Other ways to lead ourselves through colossal change, and surely the changes afoot in our society are as colossal as they have ever been. I wonder if there are other ways to organize ourselves courageously as a people. And some time ago, Kirsten and the staff and I, we were talking about change. We were talking about managing change, how to nurture it and support the people. And Kirsten reminded me of a Japanese model of change management called Nimawashi. It literally means around the roots. Japanese Nimawashi leadership, it involves quietly laying the foundation for a whole new way by going to the people, among the people, adapting to their feedback and going back. It is management by honest iteration instead of declarative strong-arming. It is leadership with, not leadership over. It is ours, not mine. The metaphor that Nimawashi change management comes from, it involves what it takes to actually successfully replant a well-rooted tree. In the Nimawashi model, it is pointless to uproot a tree all at once and go plant it someplace new and expect it to thrive. Instead, Japanese Nimawashi foresters go to the land on which the tree might move. They collect a bit of earth and bring it back with them to scatter around the roots of the tree still growing in its native soil. A little at a time, the ground of a new land becomes familiar, and the move, when it happens, feels like going to another interpretation of home. It's change that speaks to a different way of leading, that depends on a different kind of organization among the people. It's making our way toward the future, using tools that are countercultural in more ways than one. The big men of the world, the big men of this country, of the organizations that dominate it, they would like nothing more than for the ties that bind to loosen so completely that isolationism of the individual and of the geopolitical variety becomes the only logical way forward. The world needs communities that remember how to be a community. The world needs leaders, not me, but all of us, who can discover a way forward rather than declare one. The world needs what we and our faithful partners around this county and around this nation are trying to do in this uncertain time when we are stripped bare of all our bluster, bending and rising because we are all connected, in need of a chance to thrive, a chance that we can only give each other because we choose to be part of something instead of submit all over again to the mighty powers that would break it all apart. It is Stewardship Sunday, you know. And yeah, we need your gifts, but not because I say so. We need your gifts because the world needs something other than the big guy. The world needs community knit together, sustained by the treasure of generations. The world needs us, and all who do not need to stand alone and mighty, but are willing to rise every day, committed to growing, connected, and together.
That was a word, right? That was a good word. Reverend Nancy, thank you. That is, talk about nourishing our roots and our core. What a gift it is to be together. This is an incredibly vibrant and active community striving to do the day-to-day work of building the beloved community, and there are so many ways to get involved. And we hope that you will join us beyond worship in one of the countless opportunities to get involved, including today at noon and every Sunday at noon on Zoom. We host our Contemporary Issues Forum. We are continuing to do the work of envisioning our future as a congregation through our board-led strategic planning process. And so we hope that you will continue to help us do that while also ushering in spring as we host an equinox fire pit with s'mores on March 19th. We are also gearing up for our congregational retreat, which will take place April 23rd and 24th, another time for fellowship, to welcome in spring, and to continue envisioning what we want this community to be. We are always focused on nurturing the next generation of River Roaders, and we are thrilled to bring back in-person child dedications. On Sunday, May 8th, Mother's Day, we will be hosting child dedications for children of all ages so that we as a community may commit to them and their development and their participation in this beautiful place. We are reviving our fabulous bazaar. I have heard so much about it on June 4th. We need volunteers, and that is a way that we come together. And we are thrilled to announce that we have established the dates for our annual West Virginia trip so that we may serve and learn together. This summer, August 6th through 12th, we come together in service and in humble learning. This and so much more is happening in our community every day and every week. We hope that you look at the e-weekly, which comes out on Thursday, and that you will consider getting involved. It is not easy to pull together these Sunday services, and so we want to thank the team that does it. Of course, Reverend Nancy, for being our extraordinary leader. We want to thank Cliff and Schwei and the River Road Choir for blessing us with the gift of music. We want to thank Dave, Marcia, Jeff, our tech team who make this all happen. Thank you. We want to thank people working behind the scenes. We've got Natalie, actually our communications director here. Natalie, say hi. Who's been keeping it going. Mandy, Luz, the whole team who sets out the chairs, who puts the chalice out, who really allows us to come together this way. We are so deeply grateful to be able to be with you together in this sacred time and place. Afterwards, we're going to be hosting coffee and hot cocoa and cookies on the plaza, so please join us for more fellowship. And let us close now in a time of contemplation and prayer. We invite you, if you feel so moved, to extend your hands in a gesture of giving and receiving connection. We close today with the words of our colleague, the Buddhist UU minister, Reverend Samuel Trumbore. Each week we gather in this beautiful space to find peace. Each week words and music offer and celebrate peace, with the hope of instilling it in us. Now, take the peace you have found here back out into the world with you, renewed in our faith and inspired to act. Let us be the peacemakers the world aches for. And by being peacemakers, let us find the peace we long for. Go in peace, make peace, be at peace. May it be so, and amen.